Today is time to get our hands dirty. We are talking everything refurbishments. So first off, what are the benefits of doing a refurbishment? Well, first of all, it actually just feels good knowing you're providing a better quality home. And you might go, well, I don't really care about that. What are the numbers? It's like, no, it's really important actually, because being a caring landlord is actually missing from the industry a lot. There's a lot of people which are like, I don't care, it's just the numbers, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, I've been there. That maybe was me 8 years ago. And so showing that actually you care about your tenant, they will care about you. Number two is you get a better quality tenant. And what I mean by that is because you are increasing the rents, which maybe should have been my number two, you could get an increased rent. Number three, a better tenant, is somebody that can afford more is usually a higher quality tenant. I'm not saying that makes him a better person because they afford more or anything like that. But when your house is more like a home, your tenant will treat it like a home. In the same way that if your house is an absolute shithole, then it will get treated just like that. Okay, so often it's kind of like if you think about a home, whenever, say you've had a really long day, you get back, you're knackered, you chuck your clothes on the floor, right? You're then creating that behavior where more clothes go on the floor. Whereas if it's a really freshly cleaned house, what do? You tend to keep it clean. Very similar. So higher rents, better quality tenants, being a better person as a landlord, and finally, it increases the value of your asset. You need to think like this is an asset, and the more you look after it, the more cash it will produce, the more value it will go up over time. So that's great, Jamie. Refurbishments, I'm all bought in. How do you even approach it? So a refurbishment actually starts before you buy a property. I know that sounds a bit crazy. How can it start? Well, it starts in the thought process. When you're assessing a property, I promise you, I can do a 3-bed terrace property, full refurbishment for 18,000, 12,000 or 100,000, all in the same property. And that's going to depend on the quality of the products going in, the quality of the workmen that are doing the works, and everything in between. So what am I thinking about? Well, first of all, I'm looking at the ceiling price in the area. There's now in properties kind of a glass ceiling, and that often we break through the ceiling prices of the area, right? But you do need to think, if it's 100 to 120 grand, you're not going to get it to go to 200,000. You might get it to 130. So we need to think about how much money we're spending on it. You also need to think about the tenant type that's going in. You know, is it an LHA, which is local housing allowance? Is it a student? Is it a working professional? Who is the tenant type? And as much as you might go, that's bad, that's discrimination. No, it's not discrimination. It's being objective about the data. That's all this is, people. And then, of course, you need to think about how much rent they're paying. If I've got a rental that's paying me £450 a month, or I've got a rental paying me £800 a month, I know that I can spend less or more on certain things. So all of these things need to be considered when mapping out your budget. The next thing we need to get is a schedule of works together. A schedule of works is quite simple. It's really just mapping out the process of a refurbishment from start to finish. And what this is going to do is it's going to help you understand the time frame of a refurbishment. It's going to understand when the money is going to be needed, because a £15,000 refurbishment isn't 15,000 day one. It's going to help you prepare and organize your workmen. It's also going to help you keep on track. So as you're going through the refurbishment, it's going to say, hey, we're on week 2. Here's where you should be. Here's where you actually are, which is not in line often. And then, of course, the big one is you can line up your tenant by the time it's actually finished refurb. A lot of people go through the refurbishment and go, hey, it's finished. And then they go, oh, now we need to get it marketed. No, you need to start getting it marketed around 4 weeks before the property is finished to make sure you are attracting the best tenants in the area. Okay, so you really want to map out everything. Now, one top tip, if you have a low budget, is to focus on the kitchen and the bathroom. Now, let me say this. You don't need to fully replace a kitchen or fully replace a bathroom in order to get it looking really nice. Often, I've been in properties where it just needs a bit of a clean down, tightening the screws on all of the cupboards, and then putting a new worktop on. And suddenly, it looks brand new for £800 rather than £2,500 to £3,000. Same with a bathroom. You'd be shocked how just changing out the bath and the tiles can make a dramatic difference. Now, I'm not saying do that, but it will depend on your budget. And sometimes people go, I want it perfect, therefore how much is it going to cost? Rather than going, here's a set budget that I've got, how can I get this property looking as amazing as possible, working to that budget? And if you're going to have a low budget, let's say you've got a £6,000 budget, for example, I would be focusing a lot of my time on the kitchen and bathroom, because these are the main buying points or renting points. It's where people spend a lot of their time in their properties. My next top tip is flooring and lighting. It doesn't really cost a lot for good carpets and good lighting. When I mean good lighting, by the way, have you ever been in somebody's home and they go, we've got energy efficient light bulbs? It's absolutely incredible. And yeah, of course it's energy efficient because you're sitting in a fucking cave all day. It takes a month for the buggers to bloody light up properly, right? Alright, I'm all for energy efficiency, but genuinely, you know what I mean? Whereas, having great lighting, and I mean the position of a light. If you've got a big room, I don't know if you can tell on this camera, but it's a pretty big room in terms of depth, right? So if this were my front room at home, hopefully it's still in focus, I wouldn't just have one light in the middle. What I would do is I'd get 2 lights equidistant from each other. You like that word, didn't you? So equidistant, and then what this does is lights up the room more efficiently and cost about £50. Okay, small things like that make a big difference to making it feel homely. Talking of homely, the carpets. We've all done it, haven't we, where we take our shoes off, our socks off, and we walk on the carpet and we go, oh, that felt nice. We've also done it where it feels like we're walking on bloody sandpaper, okay? Don't be a cheap bastard and get £600 carpets throughout a property. Spend £1,000, spend £1,500, get the Cloud 9 underlay, and it will make a huge difference. I really mean that, because you make it part of the sale. Hey, would you mind taking your shoes off? We've just got new carpets. They go, yeah, of course, take it off. We've got the underlay, by the way. We really want to spend on this. Hey, you're walking around on your feet. We want it to be a nice experience. And people do, they're like, yeah, I can feel it. This is nice. Almost like a trampoline, right? And that sort of thing is like, you can see it, smell it, and touch it. So you've got your visual effects, and nobody's looking at carpets, I don't think so, looking at carpets going, this is high quality carpet. You feel it. And we are tactile as human beings. Now, I'll stop talking about it there, but seriously, you'd be shocked at what a positive impact it has. Top tip number 3 is space optimization techniques. Sounds very technical. Basically, put stuff in the right place. Often, have you ever been in a house where, like, I'll give an example. I went into a house a couple of years ago, and there was just this random space. Just a random space. It was kind of uniquely shaped. And it's really hard. Like, I'm quite a visual person, but you may not be. It's really hard for some people to look at it and go, I know exactly what would go there. I just know what would go there. Often people are like, that's a bit of a weird shaped space, not really sure what I could do. Now, when you optimize the space, what you do is visualize you living there as an experience. Some people would say feng shui, right? It's the experience. Where do you go? And the reason for this is, if you want to attract the best tenants, by the way, a great tenant for me is somebody that's going to live in my house, make it their home, and live there for the next 5 to 10 years. They are not looking to buy a property, more than likely. They want this to be their home. And so, with some cleverly spaced plants, shelves, bit of furniture, what it allows the potential tenant to do is visualize them living there. Okay? They're going to view 5 to 10 houses over the next couple of days. You want that feeling of like, I can see myself being here. And you'd be shocked how, like, spending £200, £300 on some well-placed bits will sell your house or rent your house like that. The next is curb appeal. We've all heard the word, but what does it mean? What it means is, when you go up to the property, there's some things you can't control and there's some things you can control. And it's so easy to sort this out. What you can't control is the local environment. Like, if there's graffiti on the pub at the end of the road, you often can't help that. Maybe you can ask them to paint over it, I don't know. If there's workmen outside, I actually would say you can control that. If I had a full day of viewings and I knew they were going to be there, I'd go, go there and go, look, here's 50 quid, can you go for a 3-hour lunch? You know, they'd be more than happy to oblige, I assure you. So, but you can't control a lot of those elements, but what you can control is when they're walking up to your door, what does it look like? The amount of times I've gone up to a property and they haven't even cut the grass, haven't even polished off the door knocker. And it seems like a really small thing, like, oh, come on, Jamie. It's not a small thing. First impressions count. If you can't put in the effort to have a great first impression, like imagine an employee, potential employee, coming to work for you. I've had this, by the way, where on paper they were exceptional. And then they turn up that they don't even want the job. And it's actually, they would have been great maybe, but that first impression is what stuck with me, and I don't want them in my business. It's the exact same as a landlord. What impact are you having in that first glance? And finally, the final clean and staging of the property. Now, sometimes you don't need this. Right now, we are in an incredibly high growth rental sector. And what that means is the properties are massively undersupplied. So pretty much anyone can rent out their property if it's in a good location. However, I really still like doing this, and that is doing a final clean, a deep clean on the property. That's really important because at the end of a refurbishment, you're going to have dust everywhere. You're going to get, and I mean everywhere, by the way. It'll be in the carpets, on the walls. You'll be shocked if you go with a damp cloth and wipe the wall, what will come off it, all right? You want a clean environment. You want people to visualize them living there. And by doing a piece of staging as well, you don't need to buy stuff. You can rent it very cheaply. It will maximize the opportunity for getting the best tenant at the best price. Or indeed, if you're selling the property, we've had it, by the way. I'll give a great example of this. We were trying to sell a property, and it was something like £240,000, and it just wasn't budging. There wasn't something there. We paid something like £300 in rent to get a load of gear in, sofas, all of that, rented out, and we sold it for £15,000 more than the price it was sticking at. And the reason is because people were here, and you started hearing comments like, oh, I could see myself living it. Oh, I love that. Yeah, we should get the sofa. Is this furniture for sale, by the way? Can we buy this with the property? Things like that. Now, it's not just another house that they're viewing. It's their future home, and that's what we're trying to create. So if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe bell and the notification bell. If you click the link in the description or pinned comment, or put education in the comments, and we will be in touch. What we'll do is book in a completely free session, which is going to be a strategic consultation session, taking you from where you're at to where you want to get to. And hey, at the end of that call, if you feel it's right for us to help you on that journey, amazing. That's an added bonus, but there's no obligation whatsoever. As I said, we're opening this up just for the next couple of weeks. Put education in the comments, book in your space. It's completely free and could potentially change your financial future. Hopefully this has been valuable. Like I said, hit the like, subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you in the next video.